Hey everyone, Kyle Walker here. If you love cars, fixing things, or just want to understand your vehicle better, you're in the right place. I share hands-on tips, smart driving advice, and straight-up car talk without the fluff. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the end. You don't want to miss what's coming up. Let's get into it.
The question concerning the device, purpose, and repair of the cart-in shaft is unlikely to interest the owners of front-wheel drive vehicles. But if you own a car with all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, then you just have to know everything about the cart-in shaft CV, and even a little more. No vehicle with all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive is without this element. The key task of the CVT is to transfer rotational energy from the powertrain directly to the wheels. This makes the shaft an incredibly important component of the vehicle. From the integrity and operability of the cart-in largely depends on the reliability of the entire car and its driving characteristics in particular. To better understand this issue, you need to understand the features of the cart-in shaft, understand its varieties, device, and principle of operation. Also, it will not be superfluous to learn about the characteristic malfunctions of this unit, which will allow, if necessary, to take the correct measures to repair and restore the performance of the CV. What it is. Let's start with the main purpose of the cart-in gear or shaft. This will give you the opportunity to finally understand what this cart-in is and why it is needed in the car. It is a mechanism designed to transfer rotation from the gearbox to the gearbox. The rotation is transferred to the gearbox of the front or rear axle, which already directly depends on the specific car and the features of its device. It is an intermediate element, which plays an extremely important and significant role in the transmission. PTO shafts can be used not only in rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive vehicles, but are also present in motorcycles. If we talk in simple words about what a cart-in shaft is, it can be characterized as a device for transferring rotation from the gearbox to the drive axle. This mechanism allows you to provide independent from the body of the vehicle, the movement for the wheels and suspension. Not everyone fully understands why a drive shaft is needed as part of the automobile design. Such a device becomes practically indispensable when the car drives on rough terrain. When the vehicle moves on uneven surfaces, there are quite strong vibrations on the driving axles, frame, and body. And when there are even minor displacements of axles relative to each other, it significantly increases the wear of elements. As a result, the smoothness of the car is disturbed, which directly affects comfort. All these phenomena can be prevented by the presence and operation of the cart-in transmission. Some vehicles are designed in such a way that the gearbox is located higher than the rear axle gearbox. Because of this, the torque has to be transmitted at a certain angle. It is possible to realize this transmission of rotation by using a cart-in gear or cart-in shaft in the design. Classification. There are several types of cart-in gears. Several classification principles are used to determine the specific device. If we consider the types of cart-in shafts according to their purpose, then the following are distinguished. Basic. They act as a support for the drive of the leading automobile wheels. That is, they are responsible directly for spinning the wheels in the car. Auxiliary. They are used as an element of the auxiliary mechanism. They can be found in pair with pumps and winches, for example. They can also act as an intermediate structure in various devices. It is also possible to divide the cart-in gears into universal. They are characterized by the ability to compensate for quite impressive axial displacements. Simple. They are devoid of any tricks and features, but they clearly and qualitatively perform the duties assigned to them. But this is not all. There is another variant of classification, which also divides gimbal gears into two types. Open. This is an independent and separate mechanism in the design of a motor vehicle. Closed. This type of drive shaft is either hidden from view or integrated into another vehicle component. Based on the design features and purpose, driveshafts can be divided into single-section and multi-section driveshafts. Multi-sectional ones are mainly used in conventional passenger cars and trucks. In the case of single-section driveshafts, we are talking about situations where the need for fast rotation on the drive axle plays a major role. This applies to sports cars that are equipped with rear-wheel or all-wheel drive. Features of the device. Leaving aside some of the CV components such as seals, mountings, and the elastic coupling, this unit contains several key components. although the same coupling plays an equally important role, as it is responsible for absorbing vibrations and sudden jerks. As for the device of the cardan transmission, then here it is necessary to distinguish such components as central shaft. It is made of high-strength steel. In fact, it has the appearance of a hollow tube, crosses that have swivel mechanisms. A pair of these cross members is used. They are used to ensure that all components of the transmission rotate at a certain specified angle. This is largely responsible for the smooth transmission of torque, spline sliding joints. This element is necessary due to the fact that when driving over bumps or other obstacles, the distance between the gearbox of the axle itself and the gearbox increases. Therefore, it is necessary to extend the PTO shaft somewhat. This is where spline elements come to the rescue, sliding fork. With its help, the ends of the center and intermediate shafts can be coupled or connected to each other, suspension bearing, necessary to support the structure, which allows the gimbal to rotate freely along its own axis. Depending on how many sections of the cardan are used in the design, a different number of suspension bearings are used. They are mounted directly on the body of the vehicle. But it is not enough just to know what the automobile cardan shaft consists of. It is also necessary to further disassemble the features of all working components. To understand how the cardan shaft works in the car, it is necessary to clarify some nuances about the components of the unit. In this way, you will better understand the basis of the PTO transmission used in the car. These units are available as twin-shaft or single-shaft units. In the case of a twin-shaft unit, the mechanism additionally includes an intermediate cardan, to which a shank is welded in the rear section, complete with external splines. And a sliding bushing is mounted to the front section by means of a joint. If the system is single-shaft, then there is no intermediate section on it. Read also, useful and effective methods for quickly learning traffic tickets in the front part of the car. The CV is attached to the gearbox due to a sliding connection of the spline type. To realize such an idea at the end of the mechanism, there is a special hole with internal splines. The device allows longitudinal displacement of these splines when the car is in motion. Then the CV outboard bearing is mounted, which with the help of a special bracket is installed and fixed on the body. This acts as an additional mount that prevents excessive shifting during travel. After that comes the fork, which is located between the front and rear of the CV. This is where the cross member with needle bearings is located. These forks and crosses in the design of the PTO shaft allow torque to be transmitted at various angles of possible bending of the PTO shaft. The CV is fixed at the rear to the rear axle gearbox by means of a flange. At the same time, the shank, which has external splines, is already fitted directly into the drive flange of the automotive main transmission. The operation of the PTO transmission is based on the fact that it can transmit torque when the position of the PTO shaft changes in space. To realize this function, two components play a key role, namely a fork and a cross-type joint. The sliding fork allows for a slight increase in the length of the mechanism when the vehicle is traveling on an uneven stretch of road. The long spline joint does not allow you to stop transmitting torque, even in situations where the suspension together with the rear automobile axle begins to shift up or down. The task of the joint in this case is to ensure the rotation of the wheels at changes in the angle of bending of the cardan shaft. It is accepted that the mechanism works productively when the angle does not exceed 20 degrees. If this value is exceeded, the process of active wear of the element begins. Advantages and disadvantages. Despite the objective necessity of using the cardan transmission in the car, this mechanism has strengths and weaknesses. Let's start with the positive qualities. Their list is quite extensive, so it is worth dwelling on the most basic ones. Reliability and durability. To a large extent, these qualities are acquired due to the ability of the cardan to withstand serious loads. This advantage is especially relevant for heavy vehicles, as well as cars that often have to drive on uneven roads and rough terrain. Maintainability. An important advantage of the CV is the fact that individual components can be changed during the repair process. There is no need to replace the entire assembly, which significantly reduces the cost of vehicle repair. Better steering sensitivity. It is actively manifested on rear-wheel drive cars, where a cardan shaft is used. The drive practically does not depend on the cardan in any way, and therefore the front axle is focused on steering and the rear axle on pushing the car. Good acceleration. The unit allows the rear wheels to be loaded, but at the same time unloads the front wheels. This helps reduce the likelihood of a phenomenon such as wheel spin on the car. Rear axle skid control. If a rear axle skid occurs, it can be dealt with much more easily through the use of the PTO, long service life. The element is really reliable, and its design ensures long service life, rebuildability. Even when the CV is badly worn or encounters serious breakdowns, it can be restored. Although in certain cases, this requires special equipment. But the disadvantages in cardan shafts are also present, and they are sometimes worth paying attention to. If we talk about the weaknesses of the CV, then it is worth highlighting such moments. The main disadvantage is the fact that the shafts do not rotate synchronously when the angle between them increases. But in reality, this disadvantage is not particularly relevant for cars with rear and all-wheel drive. The disadvantage is manifested mainly in relation to front-wheel drive vehicles. In this regard, the cardan is usually replaced by a more complex device with a similar purpose. This is a design called a ball joint or equal angle joint. Another disadvantage is considered an impressive weight of the structure. Large weight negatively affects the dynamics of the vehicle and contributes to increased fuel consumption. In order to install a drive shaft in the car, a special tunnel must be provided. This has a negative effect on the comfort of the vehicle interior, as the middle of the car is sometimes quite a large bump. Cardan shafts can create additional noise and vibration. Despite the existing disadvantages, some of them are quite conditional and cannot be considered a full-fledged disadvantage of the cardan shaft. Plus, manufacturers are actively working on improving the design, which makes it possible to get rid of some shortcomings as well as to correct the errors of previous versions of cardan gears. Characteristic faults. The most susceptible to breakdowns in the design of the cardan shaft are such elements as crosses, joints, and bearings. During operation, they are subjected to heavy loads, and the components gradually wear out. Depending on what type of drive is used and what design a particular car has, the service life of these elements usually does not exceed 70,000 kilometers. The speed and intensity of wear are directly affected by operating conditions, driving style, and a number of other provoking factors. Signs of wear are characteristic clicks and knocks that occur when starting the vehicle or shifting gears. If the front shaft crossmember breaks, there is a scraping and clattering of metal in the area of the front passenger's feet, plus the corresponding lights on the dashboard are turned on, signaling malfunction. Not solving the problem in a timely manner can provoke the breakdown of the front gearbox and automatic transmission, which will cost a very large amount of money. It is important to realize that it is impossible to prevent wear and failure of crosses or joints. It requires timely diagnosis and replacement of these elements in case of signs of malfunction. In the design of the cardan shaft acts as the strongest element of the entire unit. For its production, high-strength steel is used, which can withstand about 500,000 kilometers of operation. Damage occurs mainly with careless driving, when the car hits obstacles. Breakage may also occur due to the breakage of cardan joints. Symptoms of shaft malfunctions are vibrations from the underbody while driving. It is most likely that the cardan shaft has been bent. It is better to have it replaced in a workshop. If you try to align the shaft and do it incorrectly, you will provoke the destruction of the cross members and other components of the transmission of the car. Therefore, it is better not to take risks and immediately replace the element. Read also, how do automobile systems control fatigue of drivers and whether they are needed in the car? In the practice of motorists, on whose cars the CV is used, there are various malfunctions. Most often they are associated with oil leakage in the front part of the cardan, knocks and vibrations when engaging the gearbox, and starting, squeaks when the accelerator pedal is depressed, CV vibrations, suspension bearing failure. All of these situations should be considered separately. Oil leakage. Such a problem is mainly found on cars that use a spline connection installed in the transfer case or gearbox. Leakage can be caused by roughness and burrs on the spline joint. To solve the problem temporarily, you can enamel the surface with zero-grit sandpaper. But this will correct the situation only for a while. Therefore, the best solution is replacement. Leakage occurs when the oil seal is damaged. In this case, the O-ring loses its elasticity, resulting in a gap between the movable PTO shaft and the gearbox packing. To eliminate the problem, it is recommended to change the oil seal. Knocks when engaging the gearbox and vibration on acceleration. The knocks that occur when the shaft is loaded are formed due to gaps between the components of the assembly. This is what is considered the main factor. Extraneous sounds are formed due to the occurrence of backlash in the cross, which is caused by its destruction. Cross members should be replaced. Knocks also appear due to the fact that the tightening of the bolts has loosened. To rule out this cause, check all joints and tighten bolts if necessary. Extraneous noises are sometimes caused by a high degree of wear on the sliding spline joint. Only replacement will help in solving the problem. Squeaking under acceleration, pressing the gas pedal. Uncharacteristic extraneous sounds in the form of squeaks may occur. If the squeak occurs periodically or constantly when pressing on the pedal, as well as when driving the so-called rolling, then the cause should be sought in defects in the joints of the cross, or the problem is related to the ball joints. When the cross member jams, and in parallel there are rusty drips on the surface, the cup bearing has clearly been deformed. It is recommended to replace the element as soon as possible, because ignoring the problem will lead to even more serious and expensive consequences. If the matter is in the jamming of the ball joint, then it is recommended to disassemble the unit, lubricate its elements as necessary. When such a measure does not help, it remains only to replace the part. Vibrations. Motorists sometimes encounter such a phenomenon as the occurrence of vibrations in the CV. Often the reason lies in the imbalance of the wheels. When the vibration is observed only at speeds ranging from 60 to 80 and from 90 to 120 km per hour to solve the problem, it is usually quite enough to carry out balancing of the cardan. Such a procedure is often mandatory when part of the element is replaced or assembled without reference to the factory markings. If no repair work was carried out, i.e., errors during reassembly are excluded, and the vibrations themselves appeared suddenly and appear at certain speeds, increasing as the speed increases, it is necessary to perform several diagnostic measures. Namely, check for clearances in the cross joints, which usually cause the vehicle to not run smoothly. If the culprit is found, the already worn joints will need to be replaced. During the installation of the intermediate shaft, foreign particles, debris and contaminants may have penetrated there. It is recommended to clean the PTO flange and the receiving flanges. Also check for corrosion and possible tears in the balancing plates. If necessary, a proper balancing should be carried out. The center shaft may have been bent and deformed as a result of a severe mechanical impact. If the deformation exceeds 1.5 millimeters, it is recommended only to replace the element. When the damage is smaller, the pipe can in theory be aligned using a hydraulic press. Here there can be several options. It is better to start with the smallest and easiest in terms of elimination. If you can't deal with the problem yourself and you can't find the cause of the problem, it's better to get help from a specialist. Suspension bearing problems. Such a problem can be diagnosed by a characteristic sound. The failure is manifested as a rustling sound. If you hear a rustling sound, there is a high probability that the outboard bearing is broken. In its normal state, this element rotates easily. Its movements are smooth and almost silent. No jamming is observed. If there is a sound, then the bearing will need to be replaced. It makes no sense to try to repair it. Useful recommendations. Remember that it is in no way possible to ignore any signs of malfunctions of the cardan. If you do not heed this advice, you may face the following consequences. If the cardan breaks, the body of the vehicle itself is damaged. Additionally, the cardan can damage the piping that runs along the bottom of the car. If there are constant vibrations, it will negatively affect the rigidity of the suspension and body mountings. Also, all threaded connections, fasteners of interior panels will begin to weaken. The car will literally begin to fall apart on the move. All parts directly connected with the cardan shaft will wear faster and more intensively. This will significantly reduce their operational life, require early replacement, and expensive repairs. It is unlikely that any car owner will consciously want to face such troubles, but in many ways they can be avoided by following a few simple rules. All these recommendations are aimed at increasing the service life of the drive shaft. If you are interested in preserving the resource of the CV, then it is necessary to try to minimize the operation of the car in rough terrain. Do not accelerate sharply, move off smoothly. Do not idle the car for long periods of time. Do not save on quality spare parts. Carry out diagnostic measures. In case of complex malfunctions, contact qualified specialists. Cardan shaft is in many ways an important element of the vehicle, which, although it is considered an intermediate link, but performs a key role in the operation of rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive cars. The node does not have an extremely complex device, and its principle of operation is clear to many. This allows you to independently solve arising problems, timely detect malfunctions, and maintain the CV in working condition for a long period of time, just by following a few simple rules. In conclusion, the drive shaft plays a crucial role in the operation of a vehicle, serving as the vital link between the engine and the wheels. By transmitting power from the transmission to the differential, it enables smooth acceleration and efficient power delivery. Additionally, the drive shaft accommodates the movement of the suspension, ensuring that the vehicle maintains stability and performance on various terrains. Understanding the importance of this component not only enhances our appreciation for automotive engineering, but also highlights the intricate systems that work together to keep us safe on the road. Thank you for watching, and we hope you gained valuable insights into the functions of the drive shaft.